Hey everyone, welcome to the Femme Fables podcast. Today we are talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart about ghosting. I have very strong feelings about this topic and when people do it to others. So I have Deidre here with me as my co-host. Have you ever been ghosted? Weren't you ghosted by your husband?
I was ghosted by my husband. We have a debate about this actually.
Well, you said you
We don't know who ghosted who. I think he ghosted me, but wait.
So tell me that story.
So, interestingly, my husband Jeremy, we've been married for about 3 years now. We met like 15 years ago. And
it was 15 years ago?
Yes. So 15 years ago, we were like early 20s, you know, he's a musician. He came up to me in a parking lot and was like, "I like your belt," or something. And I was like, thanks for the compliment. I'm like, I know where you're getting at here, you know, like I don't want your compliments, you know, men to come up with you and like compliment something, you know, that they're like, you know, they're flirting with you or they're doing something. But back in Messenger days, I don't even know if it was AIM or what the Messenger
chat.
Something. But he was hitting me up to like hang out and he was just like, come over and stay the night, you know. And when you hear that, you're like,
you straight to the point.
Come stay the night. Like, come sleep over. Like a sleepover. And I'm like, I'm not coming over. And I don't know how long that went on for. I don't know if it was like days of just like, hey, come hang out. And I'm like, no. I felt like it was like, you just wanted to hang out to have a sleepover. So
in quotes, sleepover.
Yeah. You know, we were talking about music and stuff, and we had a lot of mutual friends, but I was just very hesitant. I'm like a cautious person, and I'm also like not interested in sleepovers. So one night he was like messaging me heavily, like, come on over. And I'm like, he was being very persistent. And I was like, fine. And I felt very kind of bratty about it a little bit. I put on the most unsexy outfit you can possibly think of, like pajamas, but they were like not sexy pajamas. They were just like, I remember they were like satiny baby blue with clouds, like something you just wear around your house, like nothing. And I was like, all right. And I went to his house. He lived nearby, and I went over there and we just like hung out and talked about music and stuff. And then I slept there. Like
You just slept over.
A true
sleepover.
Quote unquote slept over. And then I like woke up. I remember before he was awake. I don't remember saying anything, and I remember leaving. And then we just never talked again. And I feel like he didn't talk to me because in my mind it was sort of like it didn't go the way he wanted it to go. So I never heard from him again after that for a long time. I mean, we have mutual friends and whatnot, so it was like he pretty much ghosted me back in the day. But
what is his argument? Like, what does he say?
He says because I didn't talk to him.
Okay.
So we had this whole like conversation. It's like, well, maybe you ghosted me. You didn't talk to me either. And I was like, So I don't know which way you can put that. I was like, well, you didn't message me after that whatsoever.
Like, whose responsibility, I guess. You could have messaged him. He could have messaged you, but neither one of you messaged each other.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I guess that's like a positive spin on ghosting because you ended up being together like later on in life and married.
I know.
I don't know if it gives people hope that they shouldn't have. Like, maybe the timing wasn't right. Like,
we're both really, really weird because we ended up reconnecting like 15 years later, and he's the love of my life.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that back then. I thought he was just kind of a
typical musician. White slave,
I didn't
a bunch of girls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you never know. You really never know.
That's true.
But I brought it up to him and I was like, "Do you remember?" And he was like, "I don't think he remembered it." When I brought it up to him when we were first dating.
Do you think when you like reconnected, did he remember you? Like he was like, "Oh yeah, you came and slept over," or you think he like had no idea? Like
he knew who I was. Yeah. I think he always like we've always known who each other were, but I think that he didn't recall that evening until I brought it up.
Interesting.
It just went into the ether.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my experience with my husband ghosted me.
Yeah,
I'm sure he moved on to regular sleepovers.
Yeah, right after that, he was like, I want a regular sleepover with somebody. Yeah, my stories have not ended that way.
Yeah.
The most recent one not most recent, too recent. God, I feel like I ghosted a lot. So no, there's something called breadcrumbing,
Okay.
which is not straight ghosting. It's like the slow fade. Like I'll message you, it'll be a little bit, I'll stop responding to you timely. I'm in pandemic, like nothing was happening, everything was shut down. So I got back on my dating app and I put my location to Tampa because I knew I was coming back. I'm not going to talk to anybody in Nashville. I'm moving back home to Florida. So I matched with this guy, super conversational, funny, like we had so much in common, and we talked every day and texted, and it was actually cute. One night we watched Love is Blind together on Netflix. And we started at the same time and we're texting while we're watching it. We ordered the same food, Greek, really so we had like a date together but like not
separate.
But part of me, like in retrospect, was like, okay, we never FaceTimed. He only called me once. Everything was through text. And there was a couple days that he like disappeared. And I was like, hey, like, you're okay? Like, is everything all right? And he told me he lost his phone, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, it's like, you know, I just figured you probably just ghosted me. Like, it's so
theory
common.
that no one ever actually loses their phone.
Yeah, I don't know. But something happened. Supposedly something happened with his phone. He was new to Tampa. He had just moved there in January. So he's like, imagine trying to find a cell phone store with no GPS because I didn't have a working phone. So we went through all this stuff and I was like, oh, you know, I thought that you had just ghosted me. He's like, no. He's like, you know, you're the only one I'm talking to, blah, 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 blah. And then he sent me a screenshot showing that he deleted his Hinge account. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. Like, I'll delete mine too. Like, we're just talking to each other, right? And then the other, which in hindsight, you're not thinking properly, especially in a pandemic, and you're like, I'm lonely, blah, 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 right? He's like, I'm only talking to you. I don't want you to question anything. I'll share my location with you. And I was like, oh, that's like odd. Like, people don't usually do that. So I shared my location with him. So I could see him, what he was doing. Like, I could see his little dot, right, when you share someone's location. I knew where he lived.
That? And you can always see where they are?
Until they turn it off.
Whoa.
So we continued to talk. I eventually, now fast forward a month later, I'm about to get in the moving van to come back to Tampa and driving. And he's like, I'm so excited you're coming back. I can't wait to meet you. And we're trying to figure out what's like an appropriate date in a pandemic. Like, let's meet at a park, whatever, right? And have a picnic. So the weekend I get back, then it starts with the excuses. Oh, I have a headache. Oh, I'm working late. And this went on for a few days. Oh, my dog's sick. I thought my dog, he just got a new puppy. I thought, and this whole time I could still see his location. So I knew where he was.
Yeah.
And, which is funny. I'll talk about that later. But, so I moved back over a weekend.
Did he go anywhere interesting?
No, he was always in his apartment. I knew where, I mean, I could see where he lived. Like,
I can see that you do absolutely nothing.
Right, you're sitting in your apartment, right? Because we're all working remotely, so I could see him walking the dog, like when he would go out around the neighborhood. But, so yeah, I moved back on a weekend. He started making excuses. We followed each other on Instagram. Friday morning, I go and look at his Instagram. He blocked me.
What? Okay. That's weird.
Right? I still, to this day, I question what actually happened. So he blocked me.
Did you go anywhere weird?
No. I went, like, I was going on walks on Bayshore, like, you know what I mean? Like, so.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was completely, like, dumbfounded. Like, what just happened? So
you guys followed each other, and then, was it a day later he blocked you?
No, we had followed each other on Instagram for a couple weeks. He never posted anything. He wasn't a social media guy.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't post anything, which is even funnier. Why would you block me if you're not posting anything, right? So he blocks me. I'm completely, like, dumbfounded, and I messaged him and was like, if you weren't interested, you could have just told me that. Like, blocking me on Instagram is a little bit much. Like, never heard from him. And he didn't block my number because I think I looked it up on Google. Like, on an iPhone, if you've been blocked, your message won't be delivered. Like, it won't say delivered on the bottom. So he was still getting my messages, supposedly, I guess.
Do you still have his location?
That's true. No, he stopped sharing his location. But what's funny is, it's like, if you're going to do that to a woman, don't share your fucking location with her. What if I were some crazy ass bitch that showed up at his house? Like,
but maybe it was
I knew the car
psychology.
he drove. Like,
he probably just wanted your location.
Yeah, he blocked me, shared his stop sharing his location, but again, like, my thought was, why would you share your location with somebody if you're planning on blocking them? So it was just very strange. I never heard from him again.
Wow.
Like, I think, I mean, you could probably look him up on your Instagram and see if he's posted anything.
What's his name? Let's see. I'm gonna look right now, because that's the kind of people we are. What's his name? Oh, do you want to write it so we don't put him out there?
Well, not that I give a shit, because he's a piece of shit. So.
We're gonna protect all pieces of shit's privacy, even if we don't like you. We're gonna protect you.
Him on Instagram, so I think he deleted his account. He probably ghosted somebody else and deleted it. Like, it's just so strange to me. Like, I just wonder what he was thinking. He was so nice and like responsive and like funny, and he did call me one time and talk to me.
What does his voice sound like?
It was normal. Like, my parents were over because I was getting ready to move back, and he was just like, oh, I just want to call and say hi. Like, yeah, it's so strange. Like, I don't know, maybe he was married, like, and you just didn't know. He had like he had a family. And
he had something. He was practicing.
Yeah.
He was like, I just really want, there's a whole long group of people out there, I think, that just they like to be wanted, but they don't want to have.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of people on dating apps. They like the validation, like people swiping on them, people connecting with them, but they actually have no intention of meeting somebody. Like, no, I just want that validation constantly. I think there's so many people like that.
It's like you get a package in the mail, and you open it up, and the box is really great, and you're like, oh my god, I love this box, and it has really great drawings on it, and you open it up, and it's empty.
Yeah. Because I talked to men like that, and you're like, oh, like, you want to meet up, and they're like, like, no.
I'm only good at first conversation.
Right. They just want that, like, communication.
First date? Who wants to go on a first date for the rest of their lives? Like, that's when you're like nervous and you don't know what's going on.
It's awkward. Yeah.
It's awkward because nobody feels, they're like, I don't know, you're not comfortable. Nobody's comfortable.
Maybe that's why they don't want to go on first dates. So they just rather like virtually talk to you, but they don't actually want to go on a date with someone.
Virtual life. You're like, can we just have a virtual life together? We don't actually see each other, and we just Zoom meetings.
We Zoom each other. We Zoom date.
So he tapered down. He was like a tapered down guy. Yeah. And then he just disappeared.
Yeah. But we never met. So I think it's worse when somebody does that to you that you dated. And I'm not talking about you've gone on one date and you don't hear from the person again. Like, that happens all the time. Like, now, do I think if you go on a date with somebody and you message them afterwards and say, I had a really great time, I'd love to do it again, and they don't ever respond to you, I think that's shitty. Like, I think, and we talked about this a little bit offline, but like, the fact that people have such little compassion for others, like, baffles my mind.
Yeah. Like,
and their feelings, and they think that treating other people that way is okay. But I think that's a problem in the world in general. Like, and that's probably one of our biggest problems, like, in the world, is lack of empathy for others and compassion for one another as human beings.
I can't imagine. Have you ever ghosted somebody?
No, and that's why, like, I am very, like, adamantly of, like...
Because it's a hard thing to say, I don't know if this is working out for me.
But I think it's so easy. Okay, now we have the world of text, right? And it's a message that somebody reads. You don't have to say it to their face. So I have, like, my go-to. If I go out with a guy and he messages me after and wants to go out and I'm not interested, my standard response is, I had a really good time. I think you're a great guy. I just didn't feel the chemistry. Boom, done. Like, their ego will be hurt for a little while. So are yours if somebody says that to you. But at least you're like, oh, okay, they just weren't feeling it. Like,
I've said that to people, and most of the times they don't believe you.
Really?
Isn't it odd when you're going to say, like, I really, very nicely, like, I don't know if this is going to work out, X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, this is how I feel, as neutral as you can say it, and they just go like, yeah, I don't think you know what you're talking about.
What?
Mm-hmm. They would just be
like, I'm pretty fucking sure I do, since it's my feelings.
I think you should give it another shot. Or, like, they get mad or they try to talk you out of it. I think that's why sometimes, maybe just as, like, a devil's advocate, maybe people have gone, like, they think it's, like, confrontational, or they think that people are going to try and, like, convince them. Because I've experienced that with people where they're like, they just don't believe you, and then you have to fight with them that I don't want to date with you, and then they push you to be mean, and then you're like, dude, look, stop.
But at least you're still like, stop.
Yeah.
You're not like, and I get that. Like, there was some guy I matched with, think I was drunk when I was swiping because I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. But he was like, we didn't even get to a date, and he would not leave me alone. And I'm like, look, like, I am not interested. I don't know how much more I can say this to you. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. You know, and he finally I did have to stop responding. And to me, that's not ghosting.
No.
Like, I've already given you
Yeah.
closure. You're just not willing to accept it. What
You're
I'm
not
talking
engaging.
about is I just don't fucking respond to your message because either I'm a coward or I don't like the confrontation, which I'm not a confrontational person, but it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Like, confrontation doesn't scare me. I'm very communicative, so I can talk about things like a mature adult and move on. Like, I wouldn't be the person that's like, but you're wrong. You know you want to love me. Like, that's just not who I am. I'd be like, okay, cool. Like,
I think a lot of people do that though.
ego hurt for a little while because I probably, you know, maybe like the guy, but it's the people you spend time with on a consistent basis that disappear. That to me is like one of the shittiest things you can do to somebody.
Rude.
And maybe because it just recently happened to me that I'm so close to it and I feel so passionately about it. But, you know, sorry, the dog is, you know, doing what he does. I was dating somebody for a few months, and he knew some of my friends because he worked with them at a company I actually used to work for. We worked in the same industry, and we actually like hit it off. It was in the pandemic as well. It was like the end of May, early June that we started dating, and he actually came over to my house for our first date. And that usually wouldn't happen, but because he worked with people I knew and they knew him, not closely, but they were like, yeah, he's a decent guy. I was like, okay, I trust that this person won't fucking murder me and bury me in my backyard.
Or if he kills you, everybody knows who he is.
Right. So, we hit it off, and it was like a level of like just comfortability. Like, we could talk about anything. We communicated really well, and he wanted to spend time with me. And it went from first date to him being over at my house every other week when he didn't have his daughter. So we're not talking like we went on 4 dates. We're talking we spent like 2 weeks out of every month together for 3 months. So almost like living together in a way.
Yeah.
Like half a month.
Part-time.
So cooking dinner together, like, you know what I mean? Like all these things that
So
like
you guys had an intimate life together.
Yes. And some things happened. There was jealousy on my part, which we'll have an episode on jealousy separately, but I was trying to work through them, and I was very upfront about my issue and what I needed to help feel validated. And some things went downhill, and he started the slow fade. Like, I think he'd suffered from depression in the past, which I know is a very serious thing. I've never suffered from it, but I know it's a tough thing for people who do. You know, sometimes your actions aren't logical, right? You're in the state. And I think you had posted something about that one time on Facebook about like, don't use your mental illness as an excuse to treat other people poorly.
Yeah, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking like, even when you're depressed, you know when you're being a dick.
Yeah.
And you know that your choices, even if they're poor, you can like be consciously aware that they're affecting someone else negatively. And you probably just don't care, and I think that's the problem. They just don't care. And you can go through mental illness or waves of depression and all these things and still be a mindful person. I believe that.
Yeah.
So he was going through something.
Yeah. And I was trying to be, like, I read up on depression. I read about people who were dating people with depression just to, like, understand it. Because I was like, oh, like, I read a story about some girls. Like, I've been dating this guy for 3 years. And when he gets into a depressive state, he tells me he doesn't love me and doesn't want to be with me. Like, it's very irrational, right? So, anyways.
That sounds like something other than depression, though.
Yeah. He went into this bout of depression. Started not responding to me. And to me, I was just, like, completely baffled because we spent so much time together. He told me he needed space, which I can understand, but to me I was like, okay, well, like, how much space are we talking? Are we talking 6 months of space, or are we talking 2 weeks, right? So it keeps going. It gets less and less of conversation.
Did he say what kind of space he needed?
No, he never responded to that message. And then fast forward, didn't hear from him for 5 days. And this is the social media is a fucking nightmare, man. But didn't hear from him in 5 days after I messaged out, like, how much space do you need? Let me know if you need anything, kind of thing. And it was a Tuesday. I messaged him that on a Friday. Tuesday, bam, his Instagram, back-to-back, 2 posts. Selfie of him, pictures of his daughter. And I'm like, holy fuck.
How's
like,
that space working out?
Yeah. I blocked him on Instagram. when I saw it because I was just so hurt and I was like, I can't continue.
Because he's alive. He's out there.
Right. And I'm sitting here thinking like, oh my God, what if something really happened to him? And I'm concerned and sad. And then here you are posting a fucking selfie of yourself.
Social media.
Yeah. Social media is the devil. So.
Don't you wish you didn't know that?
Yes. I miss the days when you date somebody before social media, you know what the fuck happened to them. Like.
They're not just out there living happy lives.
Don't give a fuck. Don't know what happened to you. Like, can't contact you. Bye. Like, no. But social media ruined that. So, and he, you know, he was into photography and stuff and videography. So he posted a lot on social media in general, but he hadn't posted. So when I saw that, I think it was immature to block him. I could have easily just unfollowed him. So I immediately regretted it. Went to unblock him. He'd already blocked me. So he somehow saw, I don't know how, like maybe he saw his followers went down or something.
Sometimes they have those apps that they tell you, they tells you who blocks you.
Really?
Or who deleted you.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. There's these apps that you can get on the App Store that says like, that monitors your following and you can check it daily and it tells you who blocked you or unfollowed you.
I wonder if he, like, maybe he just saw his followers, I don't know. Who knows? Anyways, he blocked me. And I thought about it, I was like, I reacted poorly. So I messaged him the next day. I think it was the next day. And was like, hey, it was probably immature of me to do that. I apologize. You know, I just saw your post. I was a little taken aback because I hadn't heard from you. Nothing. Never heard from him. Sunday comes around. Or Monday. And I think I messaged him again. And he finally responds. He was like, hey, I'm sorry. I blocked your number too.
Oh, jeez.
And I unblocked you on Sunday, went to write you a message, but my daughter started school. And you know, that was all crazy with kids starting school with the pandemic and all that stuff. So I get it. But he was like, basically like, at that point, I didn't know what to say to you. And we talked back and forth a little bit. And then it just kind of slowly faded away. And I, you know, asked if we could rekindle things sometime later. And my birthday had came and gone and he didn't even say happy birthday to me.
It sounds like he wanted to say something to you, like that he wanted to talk to you. If he unblocked you to talk to you. It's very strange.
Yeah. He definitely was like, he felt that he was always on the defensive because of my jealousy. Like he felt he had to censor himself in what he said because he talked about his ex a lot. Like, and
I think that there's, you know, some things are misconstrued as jealousy, like just having healthy boundaries and like wanting a healthy environment. Sometimes women get like, oh, well, you're just jealous and insecure when really you just want healthy boundaries. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it's okay to say that I don't want X, Y, and Z in the world and it not be misconstrued as an insecurity.
Yeah.
Because jealousy has a specific definition and I don't know that really fits it. Like you weren't like jealous to have something that of that other person.
Yeah.
You just wanted a healthy environment.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of drama involved and I'd never dealt with that before because I'd never dated somebody who had an ex still in their life or had kids with an ex. So that was something new I was learning. So I had asked him if we could rekindle things and, you know, he gave me the, you know, I don't want to say no and have you carry on, but I think there's things deeply rooted in you that are going to be hard to change and I shouldn't ask you to change. And of course I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think there's anything deeply rooted in me that, you know, I can't work on. I mean, like all relationships take work. And, you know, I had asked him like, if there's any feelings, like let's at least see each other. At that point, we hadn't seen each other in over a month.
Yeah.
And, you know, let's see, and not like just pick up where we left off, but let's see how we feel and let's talk about it, right? Like adults do. And I was like, if I don't hear from you, I guess I have my answer, but I hope I do. And this was Labor Day weekend. And I said, you know, I hope you have a good holiday weekend. Never again.
Nothing.
He unblocked me from Instagram though. Last week.
Really?
And I only know that because I haven't looked at his social media. So that's another thing. Like, two things. Like, if you get ghosted, I think that says more about the other person and not about you.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
but I think people take it like,
there's something wrong
you're
with
like,
you.
there's something wrong with you. It's
No.
so common.
I think that there's definitely something wrong with them because when they're like cowards
Yeah.
and they don't know how to be honest and forthright, and it's very easy to just say, no, I don't like apples.
Right, exactly.
It's so easy to say that. But
right.
people are, it's an easier path to just not answer a text message.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. Because you can just simply ignore it. It's so easy to ignore it and push.
But people's emotions are behind those. People's lives are behind those. And you had your life sort of put on hold really for this, investment, this time, this like emotional investment, and this like, possibilities going forward, and then they walk away, they leave like a mess, and then you're left to clean it up.
Right.
They give you a job.
Yeah.
That's the thing that always bothers me, is someone gives you a job. Like, you've been given a job now to like heal. You've been given a job to figure it out and move past it. That's like a job. You didn't ask for that job.
Yeah. The other thing too that I follow like a lot of people on YouTube about dating and stuff like that, and they're like, when even a breakup, not just ghosting, but they're like, you need to give yourself 21 days.
Mm-hmm.
You don't look at their social media.
What?
Yeah, I haven't looked at his social media in over 2 weeks.
Really?
Even when and I could find him because it's public. So even that's so funny about blocking people when you have a public profile. You can Google that shit. You can look up anybody's Instagram if they're public.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that, now you know. Like, it doesn't matter if you block them. So but I was looking it up constantly to see what he was doing, and I'm like, I'm not healing. Like, I'm opening that wound every single time that I look. So I had to train my brain. Like, it's almost like
hard.
a train. Like, when you're so used to looking, it's right? It's like a schedule. So
you're
I just
basically
shut it off.
cutting the wound open every day.
Yes, that's what I was doing multiple times a day. Like, when I tell you, like, I was.
It's just self-destructive.
Yes. So, been over 2 weeks. The only reason why I know he unblocked me, and that was my whole point, because I'm not looking at social media. But when people tag you on Instagram and you're tagged, the things he tagged me in are back in my feed.
Oh.
So, and I can find him now through my Instagram, but like, I still haven't looked. Partly because I don't want to open the wound, and the other part is I'm so afraid of seeing him with if he's dating somebody else, like, I would probably be crushed. But
you don't need to see that.
Yeah, right. So if anybody's out there struggling with that, like, cut off the social media, don't look. I know it's hard. You got to train your brain not to do it.
Yeah.
And then second, it's not about you, it's about them. They fucking suck.
They suck. And plus, you think about it, like, let's say he called you tomorrow and was like, hey, so sorry, I really would love to hang out. You would be so like already like you could never go back to that place where you want to go forward with that person. So it's like, what would you want him to say now anyway?
I definitely wish he would reach out, because I feel like an I'm sorry would go a long way. And I would never, it would be hard to, it would not be we pick back up, it would be we're starting from scratch now.
Yeah.
And you would have to prove to me that I can trust you and that you're not going to run away when things get hard. Like, relationships take work, things get hard, and if you're dating somebody who runs away at the first sign of trouble, that's like an indication that they're always going to run away from a problem, and that's not somebody you can have a successful, mature adult relationship with in life.
Funny enough, I like Michelle Obama, and she has a podcast. Have you heard it?
No, I haven't.
You should if you're interested in it. She has a lot of really great things to say. But she was talking about marriage or relationships, and she talked about like dating and people approaching relationships, and they talked about children in relationships and all kinds of things and how it tests you. And going into a relationship, people should be really looking at it like a team. Like, if you had a basketball team or a team, and would you want somebody on a team that could only do one thing? People say, women who's like, I don't cook. Like, why would you want somebody on your team that can't do all the jobs, right? Or like, I don't do this, or I don't do that. And like, going into relationships, people, it's so frivolous. And if you go into it less, like, maybe it depends on what your intention is for a relationship, what you're looking for. But if you're looking for a long-term, fulfilling relationship, you have to go into it wondering if that person could even be there. Like you're saying, if he runs at the first shake of like the table, then he can't play all those roles.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about them. And you want to say that to that person, but then you're just shaming them. You're like, you're clearly like not a very good person. You're not healthy or strong enough to even be in a relationship. So I'm good anyway. Thanks for doing me a favor, but the pain is still there. Yeah. Because you invested.
Right. Rationally, like, all these things, right? But emotions are irrational, right?
Yes.
Like, very much so. So, like, I still care about him. I don't think and that's the thing, I tell people this all the time. I'm like, good people do shitty things.
Yep.
I don't think he's a shitty person to the core. I think he's actually a very good person. But good people do shitty things to each other all the time. And like you said, like, there's emotions behind that. And if you are someone who doesn't care that you're doing that to somebody, like, I just have a really tough time.
I'm with you. And you want
to, decent human being.
You want to just kick things in their direction or something.
It's closure is set. Like, I'm a big closure person. I need closure to move on. And I've learned as I've gotten older, I won't always get that. I won't always get the apology I'm looking for. I won't always get the reason behind it.
Sometimes closure isn't even closure. It's just like another new chapter of things to deal with.
Yeah.
You think you're getting closure, but you're just getting another job to deal with.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's better to just, what is that, a 21-day detox or something on social media? That probably comes from that whole, like, if you do something for 3 weeks, it's a habit.
Yeah. Or 30 days or something like that. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So
and that's the thing, like, now that I don't look, my habit is not looking. Like, I think about it, but I haven't, like...
It's compulsive.
Yeah.
It's compulsive, and then you start being upset with that person, and you're having a fight with, like, nobody. Because in your mind, you're upset. That person's not upset. That person's going about their life.
Yeah.
And whatever he's thinking or not thinking, you don't know about.
Right.
But I think it is a lack of empathy. But also, people aren't responsible to give other people their closure, because he's obviously not in a place to be, like, prepared to be mature about it, or give you, because he obviously couldn't be there as the way he could have been as a strong person. Because we're all responsible for our own healing.
Yeah.
And the person who hurt you can't be the person to heal you.
That's true. That's a good point. And I think that's what I've learned. Like, I have to heal on my own and recognize that, you know, it didn't work out for a reason. What did I learn from it? Because I also think people come into your life for a reason. There's never not a reason why somebody comes into your life, right? There's either a lesson, or they better you, or they make you better in some way, shape, or form. But...
Or they make you want to stab people.
Yeah, or, right. And, you know, I hit him with a bus, like, whatever. Like, I'm that kid. He may watch this one day.
Ghosting. What do you think, do you think that has been... What was ghosting before... social media? What was ghosting before we had phones?
I don't think it was anything, because there was no mechanism to connect, right? Like, so you didn't have a phone.
Like, not waving back? Like,
right?
Going down the village, someone waves at you.
But, like, think about it. Before you had phones, you were dating, like, in high school, right? So you're dating people that went to your high school.
Yeah.
And you just kind of stopped talking to each other, but you saw each other every day. You know what I mean? Like, there was no... Yeah, I guess it was...
We're so connected. We're so connected. Our phones, our locations, our social media. And I wish I wasn't sometimes, because it's too much information. And it makes dating hard. It makes living hard. It makes just anything that goes on hard.
Well, and that's like... we could talk about it on the dating app episode, but, like, stalking somebody before you go out with them, I am, like, prime. Like, I look up everything. Like... But then you have to be careful when you go on your date, because you can't be like, oh, how was your trip to Barcelona in 2018? Because I fucking stalked your Facebook.
That's pretty crazy.
But one, I want to know you're a normal person.
Yeah.
I also look to see if they have photos with other people. Like, do you have friends? Like, to me, that's important. Like, because I've dated people who had no friends, and they ended up being fucking psycho. Like, because they're so latched on to you. Right. Why don't you have friends? We'll talk about that in the dating app red flag episode.
If you have no friends.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, I'm pretty sure when I was even when I was dating my husband, I looked up all kinds of stuff about him.
Like, I'm sure you
could
easily find him, because he's a musician.
Yeah, so he had, like, interviews, and I would, like, listen to all his interviews and stuff, and, like, because I like him, and I was, like, interested, but, you know, it's just interesting. It wasn't so much, like, trying to get information, because you wouldn't get it that way anyway, but I did go look up anything I could find, for sure.
Yeah, I think we all tend to do, like, because, and that goes,
Curiosity.
It's the whole point of, like, it's so readily available to us, like, of course I'm going to go look at somebody, like, what do they look like in their everyday photos?
Who doesn't go to the end of someone's Instagram photos to go all the way back and see what happened? You know?
Well, that's like with the guy I was talking about that just ghosted me. Like, I went the time warp, and he still had posts with his ex, like how much he loved her and how hot she was. And I was like, can we not fucking delete that? Like, and he's like, well, they were together 8 years, so I'm sure there was a lot that he went to delete. And he was like, I just eventually got tired. Like,
what's your opinion about that? Do you think people should delete their pictures of their exes?
Ooh, well, being a jealous person, yes.
But you would, right? You would delete?
Yeah, I don't have anything on my Instagram of exes. I think I deleted it. There's probably some Facebook stuff, but
deep.
Instagram's easier, right, to find. But
I deleted.
I think if it's an ex you talk about all the time, like this person I was dating, yeah, you need to fucking delete all that shit. But
I actually threw away photos, like actual full albums.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what do I need that for?
What do you, and that, I guess that was, and we talked about that, and he's like, who cares? It's just Instagram. And I'm like,
and again, that's how women get coined as jealous.
yeah.
Because they're like, why do you care? It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
And to some degree, they have a point, but also
Right.
I think it's a point is like, well, why do you care to hold on to it?
Right. And it's not like, it's like you talking about how nice her ass is.
That's
Like, it's
tough
not
to
just a family photo,
That could go.
Yeah.
I can understand like people keeping certain things that are neutral.
Yeah.
If it was family.
Yeah, that I
related.
understand. But not like, oh, it's a video, it's me having a video of her grocery shopping and I'm just pinning, like, focusing on her ass. Or,
Social media.
yeah.
It is pretty crazy. I've seen people where like situations where people like recreate the same relationships over and over again, and you can see that on social media,
Really?
like the trajectory of like the same kinds of photos, and then there'll be a break, and then there'll be a new partner, and then they do the same kinds of photos, the same kinds of trips, the same kinds of things. Yeah, they're like
That's creepy.
habitually like recreating the same relationships over and over again. So maybe it's like better that they save it and then you can see the pattern.
Yeah, he definitely didn't. And I think that was in, we can, talk about it more in the jealousy episode, but I think that's the thing. I saw these things on social media, so I was like, okay, he's clearly affectionate in some way verbally, right? He's posting
Yeah.
about this woman. Granted, he was with her for 8 years. We'd only been together a few months, but what I needed, because words of affirmation is my love language. So I needed more verbal validation if I'm going to constantly hear about your ex. And I know you can give it because you're posting to the world how much you love this woman.
Yeah.
And all I want you to tell me is that you think I'm smart and pretty. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
And that's such a simple thing to give
Yeah.
somebody, is to say something nice.
and I think he thought he did. Because I remember him telling me one time, like, I was talking to my friend and I was telling them how, like, I love your eyes and lips and your hair and your body, and I'm like, but you don't tell me that. Like, don't tell your friend that. Tell me that. Like, you know what I mean?
What was
I don't
his love language?
I made him take the test when we first started dating, and his was words of affirmation too.
Really?
hmm
That's interesting.
Which is funny because usually whatever yours is what you give out,
That's
because
true.
that's what.
Yeah.
But no, I think what he gave me was quality time. He was here all the time with me. But what's funny too is, in retrospect, my friend's like, you had no idea where he lived. I don't. Until this day. Never went to his place. No idea where he even lives.
That's interesting.
Right? And he has kids, so I think there was some level of protection. Like,
But after you should kind of know a general vicinity.
I know what area he lived in. I just didn't know where he lived. I'd never
Yeah.
been to his house. Like,
Huh.
and that was a good point my friend made. She was like, you thought you had this connection with somebody. She's like, we don't know how that guy lives. Like,
3 months is still kind of new, but I
Yeah.
would want to know like where they live. Not
Yeah.
for like, I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah. No, he would always come over here, and yeah, he'd spend like 5 days at a time here, like
Oh.
until he had his kid, and then next 5 days he'd be here. Like, yeah. So it was interesting.
I wonder what the
anyway,
future's gonna hold with that, because sometimes like you always get like the hindsight apology 2 years down the road, or someone shows back up and they're
Mhm.
like, just want you to know something. They show up out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, they always circle back.
They circle back. They give you the
Always.
odd apology, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's okay.
Or like, hey, or they don't even fucking apologize. It's just like, hey, how are you? Or it's usually around the holidays. Merry Christmas, how you been? Like, you know what I mean?
Jeez.
But yeah, no, they always come back around. It could be like you said, 3 weeks from now. It could be 3 years from now.
Could be
but
3 years
there's
from now.
always something.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
or like your case, 15 years.
15 years. And he hit me up on a very platonic level, just to work together in a creative project. And when we actually did,
Was his intent just to, or was he kind of like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm gonna try to reconnect with her, and I can make it seem like it's a creative project?
no, because he was in a committed situation at the time, and it was completely platonic. Him and now my roommate, my brother-in-law, like, it was funny because we worked on a photo shoot for a band thing, and like it was just straight business, and then we didn't talk for another year because it was just straight business.
Mhm.
So we just did a shoot. He hired me, and we did I did the photo shoot, and then we didn't talk for another year. And then a year later, it just was another platonic reason. I was so blind to all of this, obviously. Like, I just move around the earth like I have no idea what's going on in the world.
So have you ever ghosted someone?
I feel like I have, in the sense of like people not like having to stop telling them Like,
Okay, they didn't take the first response.
right.
As,
Yeah, I've never
yeah.
just not spoken to somebody. Well, I guess I didn't talk to my husband after we hung out,
Oh,
but
that's
under those
good.
circumstances, they were different. But if I was dating somebody, no, I never did that, because I come from a place of being communicative, and you know, I hyper express myself, so it would be impossible. But I always would say, like, you know, I don't really think this is going to work out. But most of the time, I've had to ghost people when they wouldn't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
And then you feel like a jerk, but you know, you're doing what you have to do. People push you into a corner to have to like consistently tell them that you don't like them. Then you're making me be an unkind person.
Right. Yeah, I get that. Have you ever been ghosted besides your husband?
I had just a lot of strange relationships in my life. I had kind of like a serial monogamist, as like it were. I was always in like long-term relationships, and then like little in-between parts where I would be single and like have just very strange like interactions with the world that made me very scared. Because men are very, like, in general, they're like kind of scary. Like, they come from, like, even though the unassuming ones, they go from like, oh, you're so beautiful and I would love to date you, and then the minute you like, you're like, don't, then they're like, well, fine, fuck you then. And then they go straight into being like, you're like, whoa, you're clearly like not like a well person, you know. So thank you for telling me that. It's very nice. I'm threatened, ghosted. No, I can't think of. I had a lot of strange relationships with like people that were like not straightforward with me about them being in relationships. I've had that happen because I'm like an imbecile. I said I walk around the earth believing. I'm like very naive sometimes, and I had people like, I thought I was in a relation. I was in a relationship with this man for almost like 2 years, and I didn't know he was married.
What?
I didn't know he was married. And I never actually knew he was married
Like
until
legit happily married or
like
separated?
had a child, conceived a child during the time that I thought I was in a relationship with this person. He's now dead, so he passed away, so it's fine to talk about it. Like, but it was like I didn't know. I had no idea.
Holy shit.
He had like he had a wedding ring on when he came to see me one time, and I naively was like, why are you wearing a ring? And he was like, oh, it makes me think of you.
Oh my god.
So I wore a ring.
Fucking piece of shit.
Think about that. And I was like, so it makes me think of you, and I was so naive, and I'm like, oh, okay, well that's weird, but okay, that's very sweet.
Oh. Wow.
I didn't know until many, many years later, and he had sent me a friend request on like Facebook, and it was like he was married with a family, and I went back and I'm like, oh my god, he was like totally married the whole time we were like together, and
Holy shit.
yeah, so that happened.
There was another guy that I dated briefly when I lived in Nashville. He was a cop, so we worked like odd hours, and we went out a couple times. Never like had sex or anything like that, but like heavily made out. And our second date, we like heavily made out. I slept over at his place. We didn't have sex, and it was like the slow fade. Like, oh, let's get together. Oh, I can't because of work. Whatever. So he worked events in Nashville, so like the Titans games, like music events, right? So I was walking to a concert down the street. No fucking lie, there he is in his uniform. And I kid you not, he saw me and he goes, I can see the words in his mouth. He goes, oh shit, and hid behind his other cop friend so I wouldn't see him. Obviously I fucking saw him. So my friend I was with is like very like aggressive, and she's like, fucking go up to him and say something. I was like, and I'm, like I said, I don't mind confrontation, but I'm not at that level.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go up to the guy while he's working a cop. First of all, he has a gun and a taser, and he can shoot me or tase me. Like, I'm not going to be aggressive towards him.
But he's hiding at this point.
Totally fucking, like, hiding from me so I wouldn't see him. And I sent him a message. I was like, oh, I'm glad to see you're fucking alive. I didn't get a response, but yeah.
So he just like, he didn't say anything when you were talking to him in person?
No, I didn't say anything to him in person. I just kept walking. He hid behind his friend. I kept going, and my friend was like, go back there and say something. I'm like, what's the point, really? Like, what am I? It's not gonna make me feel better. Like, again, it's about him. He's a piece of shit. I'm not the piece of shit. Like,
wow, that's amazing.
And now he's with somebody. That's the other thing. Like, I am like the female good luck Chuck. Like, if you date me, you will meet your
next thing.
Yeah, your soulmate after me. Like, I dated so many guys who are still in relationships with women, and I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, maybe I'm like their trial relationship.
No, you're just a good person, and you don't want to see the good in people.
don't know. It's like, I can tell you, like, I can think of
Those women are putting up with some shit.
Yeah, and that's what somebody's told me that once. Like, they're probably putting up with shit that you wouldn't, or you call people out on, and they're like, yeah, but it's easier to go find somebody to put up with my shit than have to work on it. So, which is maybe the guy who I was just recently dating. Like, somebody can deal with him talking about his ex all the time and be okay.
Exactly.
Like, or he can just not talk about his ex.
Like, my husband puts up with my shit, and I am for sure like a strange bird. But so that's what I mean. There's somebody for somebody. It's out there. The longer you go along the line, but most people are it's almost like not even worth it, because the more people you meet, the more jaded you become, and the more like desensitized, and the more you lose that magical excitement in learning new things. It just becomes a formula. And then, so do you ever take breaks from dating? Like,
oh yeah. Well, after this recent one, I mean, it was like over a month. Like, I just got back on my dating app, like this past weekend.
Yeah.
I went over a month with not talking to anybody, just kind of healing myself.
That's good.
Focusing on what I want in my life. And that's the other thing too. Like, I think when you go through things like that, you're like, I'm never going to meet anybody. Oh my God. Like, I definitely have those thoughts, and I'm sure there are people out there who are single who think the same things, and you will meet somebody. Like,
right before my husband and I started dating, I was like at a point where I was like, okay. I remember specifically being like, I think being in relationships was more problematic for me than not being in relationships. Like, most people want to stop you from doing the things you love, or they want to change who you are, and then it becomes this like dramatic thing, and you're like, well, I'm much happier by myself, actually. Do I need someone to make my life happier? It's very nice to have a connection and stuff. And so I was like, I think I'm good. I think that I can just create art and be a person and not have to think about all this stuff, and it'd be good. And I was fully like, this is interesting to be here, because I didn't think I would be, but I think I'm actually like not interested in finding a relationship.
yeah.
And then somebody knocks on your door, and you're like, man, I went through all the effort to not be interested, and here this happens. And it's cliche, and people said it to me for years. All my married friends would be like, oh, don't worry, it'll be fine. And I'm like, you're fucking married.
Right.
You're not allowed to tell me that I'm not allowed to be lonely and feeling odd and strange. And then I was over there grumpy with my arms crossed, and I'm like, shut up. Because I think I was like single for like 5 years, like
which is what I'm at.
a long
5
time.
years, yeah.
And you're like, I've met a lot of people in 5 years. I've met a lot of people. I didn't even see a glimmer of hope in all of that time, so it's very hard to like maintain optimism.
It really is, but you have to, and it also is like you have to be happy within yourself, right?
Yes.
Like, and that's a big piece of it. But I've been single for 5 years. Like, I think you just have to find things, right, that bring you joy.
That
like,
don't
you're
involve.
into photography,
Yep.
you know what I mean? And like, I'm taking golf next week.
That's
and
cool.
you know what I mean? I'm doing this podcast, which I've always wanted to do.
Which is awesome.
So just
it opens doors, and you'll meet new people,
does.
I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, and that's the other thing. My friends, like, there's all you'll be okay, and it's like, look, you've been with your spouse for 15 fucking years. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Let me know when you go get divorced and start dating, and let me know how you feel about things. Like in this dating world, like, and they, and I always get the, you're so great, like, you got all these things going for you.
I know that.
Right? Yeah, I'm like, I know that. As the other person just can't fucking see it.
But being a confident woman is also looked down upon. Being a strong woman is looked down upon, I think. I think that everybody wants a damsel in distress, but really they don't.
Yeah.
They really don't. And I think gender roles in society become sort of like a huge play in like how powerful women have become and confident and strong, and how like men have to step the fuck up. And it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
Because you want an equal. You want someone who can hold your hand and walk with you. They're not walking behind you, or you're not dragging bodies with you. Because that's the difficult thing. I would say it should be no assembly required. Someone should walk into your life like no assembly required.
That's a good, I like that.
Batteries fucking included.
Right? Yeah. Batteries included. You don't get those. But that's the other thing, like, your friends say to you, like, it'll happen when you least expect it. Like,
I can't roll my eyes harder at that.
Did you get that too from your, I'm like,
yes.
Oh, okay,
I remember very vividly just like how, like, I was just like, and on the flip side of that, and being like, okay, they weren't wrong, quote unquote, but at the same time, like, you don't want to hear that, because it's coming from a place, I'm like, you're fed and I'm hungry.
Yes, exactly.
And you're telling me to not be hungry.
Right, and I don't think, like, I think that's such a good thing, because I don't think, like, your friends that are in relationships or married, like, understand it that way.
No.
Like, you have what I want, so for you to come and be like, it's fine, you did it, like, No.
Mm-mm.
And it is fine, really. Yes, I'm not like sitting here like drowning in my tears or anything. I'm happy with my life, but it's like, no, I don't need somebody to make me happy. I want somebody to compliment my life.
Exactly.
And you know,
or enhance your
yeah,
life.
enhance it, right? I
And
want
push
and
you.
do the same thing for them. Like,
Exactly.
and that's how it should be.
But it can happen. I know it can happen because I'm a huge supporter of love,
Yeah.
and I'm a huge supporter of people finding that journey because it's very interesting. Even all this like junk and like people ghosting, like people need to stop and just be more honest that they would actually they have a better fulfilling life. And even if you're just hanging out with somebody as friends and you're like, okay, this is obviously not a love connection, but I'm really enjoying that I met you and I appreciate the time that I've met with you. I don't know why people can't just be more honest.
I don't either. It's so easy to do, and it's just like I said, the level of like empathy and compassion for others, and it's just good karma.
Yeah.
Because karma's a bitch. Like that shit comes back around.
I'm
Like,
waiting
and
for it
you-
on a few.
Yeah, right. It's always great when you can see the karma in action. You know, usually you can't. You don't know when it happens until later. But
I want to become so powerful that I just have a button I can hit and just not maybe not for
Karma.
me. just karma. You
like
just
the
hit
no
the
button, karma. Boom, hit by a bus.
I'm kind of hoping for like the like you know the universe where somebody does something shitty to someone and they get punched in the face immediately, not from like me or
Nice,
anybody else.
yeah.
They just get hit or they
Ooh, did
fall.
you ever watch that show where they did like what was it called? I used to want to go on it. They had the big bouncy balls that they had to jump on, and it had like things that came out the wall and punched them. That's what like the world needs, like a punching
Yes.
bag, just bink.
Yes, immediate karma, nondescript immediate karma punches you in the face. Like if you ghost somebody, you just get hit and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, that
That
was
was
really
a
shitty of me.
Bad idea.
Right.
Wow.
All right. Well, I think that wraps
Yeah.
it up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're probably going to release episodes every 3 weeks or so. I think the next one's probably going to be on dating apps, red flags. So that will be a good one. There's lots of red flags I can think of as far as looking through dating apps. So thank you again. Follow us on Instagram at FemFables Podcast, or our YouTube channel, FemFables. And then we have a Gmail if you want to email us a story or a topic that you want us to cover at femfables@gmail.com. Thank you guys.